Once upon a time there was an old miller who had 3 sons. When the miller died, he left his sons a mill, a donkey, and a cat. The eldest got the mill, the middle got the donkey, and the youngest had to take the cat. The older brothers laughed at him, but the cat promised that he would make his younger brother rich if he gave him a pair of boots and a bag. The owner was surprised, but fulfilled the cat's request. The cat immediately pulled on his boots on his hind legs, poured oats into the sack, threw it over his shoulders, and went hunting. In the forest, he opened the bag, threw it on the ground, and hid himself in the thickets. He didn't have to wait long. A curious hare galloped to the sack and climbed into it to feast on oats. And the cat was just waiting for that. He jumped out of the thicket, tightened the sack, lifted it on his shoulders, and went to the royal castle. The king of that country was a great lover of good food. The cat bowed deeply to him, handed the hare, and said that it was a gift from his master, the Marquis de Carabas. The king was pleasantly surprised by this surprise. The cat bowed like a real nobleman and hit the road.
Goodbye.
The next day he went hunting with the sack again. This time he managed to catch 2 fat partridges. The king was delighted to see another pleasant gift. For several weeks in a row, the cat continued to wear partridges and hares to the king. But he did not say anything about this to his hungry and emaciated owner. Once the cat saw a princess in the palace. She was very beautiful. The cat realized that she would be a wonderful wife for his master. And so the king wanted to finally meet the Marquis. The cat replied that they could find him tomorrow for a walk where the mills were. And he himself ran at full speed to the mill. Seeing the owner, the cat said that tomorrow he will need to swim in the river, and then his life will change. The next morning, as soon as he got into the water, the cat grabbed his clothes and hid them in the bushes. At that moment the royal carriage appeared on the road. The cat jumped out onto the road and shouted at the top of his lungs, "Save me! Help! The Marquis de Carabas is drowning!" Hearing this, the king ordered to pull the Marquis out of the water. The miller's son got very frightened when 2 guards began to drag him out of the river where he was basking in warm water. The king ordered to bring him his silk attire. The miller's son initially refused, but he liked the gold-embroidered clothes so much that he gladly put on the royal outfit. The king invited him to the carriage, where the beautiful princess was sitting. The miller's son was dumbfounded, but without further ado got into the carriage. A minute later, the carriage rolled on through the fields and meadows that belonged to the giant cannibal who lived in a huge castle. The cat wasted no time, and what was the spirit rushed ahead of the carriage towards the meadow, where the reapers were working in the sweat of their brow. He asked them to say that these fields belonged to the Marquis de Carabas, otherwise the evil cannibal will eat them. Before the astonished reapers could reply, the king's carriage pulled up. And when the king asked whose meadows they were, they answered in a friendly chorus that these fields belonged to the Marquis de Carabas. Meanwhile, the cat went straight to the man-eater's castle. With feline dexterity, he jumped over the stone wall and made his way into the castle. The cannibal was sitting at a large table laden with various dishes. Seeing the Puss in Boots, he was greatly surprised at such impudence. The cat began to tease the giant and said that he could not turn into a lion. Before the cat had time to utter these words, the cannibal turned into a huge lion with a shaggy mane. The cat's soul went into his boots from fear, but he overcame it and said that the cannibal could never turn into a mouse. The terrible lion disappeared, and a small mouse appeared in its place. And that was all the cat needed. In the blink of an eye he caught up with the mouse, caught it, and ate it. At this very time, the royal carriage drove into the castle courtyard. Opening the carriage doors, the cat bowed politely and said that he was glad to see everyone in the castle of the Marquis de Carabas. It is difficult to say who was more numb from amazement at these words, the king or the miller's son, who already did not understand anything at all. The cat took the guests to the table. At the end of the dinner, the king, having eaten to the fullest, said that the marquis was indeed a very worthy man, therefore he would gladly give his daughter to wife. The princess was happy, young, handsome, and besides, she really liked the rich marquis. Soon they played a wedding. So the miller's son married a princess and became a prince. All of them lived happily ever after, especially the cat, who proudly paced the palace in high boots. Once upon a time there was a miller with his beautiful daughter. He really wanted to get rich, so he did nothing but lie to others. The people did not like this, and they complained about the miller to the young king. The king decided to teach the miller a lesson and called him to the castle. Introducing himself to the king, the miller told about his beautiful daughter. He lied that she knew how to turn straw into threads of gold. The king asked the miller's daughter to come to the castle the next day and show everyone her abilities. When the father told his daughter about this, she was furious that he had lied again. The next day they went to the castle. The king led the girl into a room in which a spinning wheel and a basket of straw were prepared. The king ordered that by dawn all the straw turns to gold, and if she fails, then her father will be punished for deception. The girl looked at the straw and cried bitterly. Suddenly, the room lit up with light, and a small man appeared in the middle of it. The midget asked why she was crying. The girl told him everything. The little man offered to help, but in return he asked for a necklace that hung around the girl's neck. She agreed. And the dwarf set to work. As soon as he turned all the straw into gold, the little man disappeared as suddenly as he appeared. Morning has come. The king entered the room and was amazed at what he saw.
Cool.
The girl was happy. But instead of letting her go, the king brought in more straw. He ordered to turn it into gold by morning. The girl began to cry again. But then the dwarf appeared before her again. This time he asked in return for a precious ring that her mother had given the girl. The dwarf took the ring and began to spin straw. By morning the baskets were full of gold. When the king entered the room, he was very pleased.
Cool.
But instead of letting go of the girl, this time he filled the whole room with straw. The king ordered all the straw to turn to gold by dawn. In return, he promised to pardon his father and make her queen. As soon as the king left the room, the dwarf appeared again. But this time, the girl couldn't give him anything. And then the little man said that he would turn the straw into gold if in return the future queen would give her child, who would be born. The girl saw no other way out, and therefore accepted his offer. When morning came, the king saw gold, and was very happy. This time he kept his promise. He freed the girl's father, and made her his wife. So the miller's daughter became queen. After a while, her child was born. And one day, when the girl was putting him to bed, a little man appeared. He warned that he would take the child in 3 days if the queen did not find out the dwarf's name. As soon as the little man disappeared, the girl asked the servants to make a list of all the names in the kingdom. By morning the servants brought the list. When the dwarf appeared, he asked the queen what his name was. She began to read all the names on the list one by one. When the queen had finished, the little man said that none of the names fit. And he disappeared. The girl asked the servants to make a list of all the names in the neighboring kingdoms. By morning, the servants had written on a piece of paper all the names they found. When the dwarf appeared, he asked the queen what his name was. She began to read all the names on the list one by one. But there was no right one among them. And the little man disappeared. The queen asked the servants to visit all known countries and collect as many names as possible. At dawn, a servant told the queen that he had seen an unusual situation the night before. Walking through the woods, he came across a small house. In the courtyard near the fire, some dwarfs sang a song that tomorrow the queen's child would finally be his. And at the same time joyfully shouted out his name. His name was Rumpelstiltskin. When morning came, the dwarf appeared again. He asked the queen what his name was. The girl pretended not to know his name and began to read the names from the list. With each new wrong answer of the queen, the little man became more and more joyful. Finally, the girl uttered his name. And at the same moment, the ground under the feet of the dwarf crackled, and he fell into a huge hole. So the queen got rid of the greedy little man. Later, she told the king about everything. He saw that the queen was sorry for what had happened and forgave her.
Okay.
Since then, they have lived happily ever after.